Colombia, the land of liquid rainbows, the land of palm trees piercing through the clouds, the land of ancient cities swallowed whole by the jungle. For decades, Hollywood and dark crime dramas have planted a grim image of this country deep inside your mind. You thought you understood this place through a screen. Wake up. While the world remained trapped inside the brutal stereotypes of the past, a South American dragon was slowly awakening, exploding back to life with a raw and breathtaking energy. Imagine a single nation in all of South America, touched by both the savage wilderness of the Pacific Ocean and the crystal waters of the Caribbean Sea. You are standing before a land that holds nearly 10% of the planet's total biodiversity. And the craziest part, all of that overwhelming abundance is compressed into a territory barely larger than Texas and California combined. You can freeze atop the Andes Mountains in the morning, and sweat beneath the suffocating canopy of the Amazon rainforest by afternoon. Colombia is nothing like what you have been taught to believe. It is time to forget every cliché you have ever heard. Today, we are diving straight into the heart of one of the most biodiverse, resilient, and reality-defying nations on Earth. Welcome to a land of brutal survival boundaries, where miracles erupt into real life, and where one of the greatest national rebirth stories of the modern era is still unfolding before your eyes. Welcome to Colombia. Deep within the wilderness of Serranía de la Macarena flows a river that completely breaks the laws of nature. Welcome to Caño Cristales, also known as the liquid rainbow. From above, the river looks as if someone poured entire barrels of red, yellow, green, blue, and black paint directly into its rocky channels. But the closer you get, the more you realize this miracle is not an optical illusion. It is biology. This entire surreal spectacle is created by a rare endemic aquatic plant known as Macarenia clavigera. For only a brief window between the rainy and dry seasons, when water levels and sunlight align in absolute perfection, the plant erupts into vivid color, transforming the river into a flowing ribbon of impossible beauty. But this paradise once carried a deadly price. For decades, this region was completely forbidden territory, utterly abandoned by tourism. Hidden deep inside areas once tightly controlled by armed guerrilla forces, attempting to reach this river meant gambling with your own life. Only in recent years, as peace slowly returned, did the gates finally open to Colombia's most mysterious natural treasure, allowing the world to witness a masterpiece that once existed only in dangerous whispers and forbidden legends. Forget the short palm trees lining the sunny beaches of Florida or Hawaii. Hidden deep within the Andes Mountains, Cocora Valley throws you into a surreal world that feels ripped straight out of a Dr. Seuss storybook or a real-life Jurassic Park landscape. Here, gigantic wax palms pierce directly through the clouds, soaring as high as 200 feet into the sky. You did not hear that wrong. Imagine a tree as tall as a 20-story building in downtown Manhattan, yet supported by nothing more than a thin, perfectly straight trunk, crowned with a fragile burst of leaves trembling in the mist. How can a species of palm tree supposedly born for tropical beaches survive at freezing elevations nearly 3,000 meters above sea level? The secret lies within the thick layer of wax coating its trunk. This natural armor does far more than protect the trees from brutal mountain winds and bone-cutting cold. It also functions like a perfect moisture retention system, transforming these palms into some of the most resilient survivors in the valley. The sight of thousands of towering wax palms fading in and out of dense white fog creates a visual hallucination so overwhelming that you genuinely begin to question your own eyes and wonder whether you are still standing on Earth at all. But Colombia's nature never gives you time to breathe. One moment you are shivering inside the freezing fog of the Andes Mountains, and in the blink of an eye, you are thrown straight into a burning labyrinth. Welcome to Tatacoa Desert. Although technically this is not even a true desert. It is an ancient tropical dry forest, slowly carved apart by millions of years of erosions. If you have ever wondered what Mars might look like, just stare at the endless maze of cracked red and gray clay canyons twisting before your eyes. The daytime heat scorches the earth itself, baking every inch of soil beneath an unforgiving sun. This is not the soft, rolling sand dune paradise you imagine from Nevada or Arizona. It is a silent furnace, a natural death maze stripped bare of mercy. But the true miracle of Tatacoa only awakens after sunset. Completely isolated from the glowing light pollution of modern megacities, the night sky here reaches a level of primordial darkness almost impossible to comprehend. In this absolute void of silence, Tatacoa transforms into one of the greatest natural astronomical observatories on Earth. No neon lights, no skyscrapers, no human interference, only billions of stars pouring across the sky like rivers of fire through the Milky Way. Standing beneath that infinite cosmic abyss, you suddenly feel the terrifying smallness of human existence itself, as if the universe has opened directly above your head, creating a breathtaking illusion of outer space right here on Earth. Now move north, where every American fantasy of the perfect tropical beach is about to be completely torn apart. Floating far out in the Caribbean Sea, the San Andres archipelago overwhelms your vision with its famous Sea of Seven Colors, a breathtaking optical phenomenon where the ocean shifts from glowing turquoise to deep sapphire blue within seconds. But the truly dangerous madness waits back on the mainland inside Tayrona National Natural Park. This is not a beach where you casually sip cocktails beneath palm trees. This is a place where brutal jungle collides headfirst with the Caribbean Sea, creating one of the most violent ecological clashes on Earth. The contrast here feels almost supernatural. Beneath the crystal clear water lies a dazzling underwater kingdom of massive coral reefs and thousands of brightly colored marine creatures. It is peaceful, silent, and overwhelmingly beautiful. But do not trust that peace. The moment you step just a few meters inland across the white sand, the rainforest swallows you whole. Hidden inside the suffocating darkness beneath the giant canopy, the jaguar watches silently from the shadows. These predators are the true ghosts of the tropical forest creatures, possessing one of the most powerful bite forces in the feline world, capable of crushing skulls with terrifying ease. You can spend your morning peacefully swimming beside tropical fish, and by afternoon find yourself struggling to survive inside a jungle ruled by poison dart frogs and invisible hunters. Tayrona is not merely a beautiful beach. It is a deadly arena where breathtaking beauty and brutal death dance together on every square centimeter of land. But Colombia's untamed wilderness is not the only thing that destroys every limit of human imagination. To witness true survival, we must leave behind the primordial rainforests and plunge directly into a place once known as the deadliest city on Earth. Welcome to Medellin. If you grew up in America during the 1990s, this name was probably tied only to grim news reports, infamous drug cartels, and ruthless street violence. Medellin's past was not some sensational Hollywood crime drama created for entertainment. It was a brutal reality. A city where desperation suffocated every alleyway and entire neighborhoods were trapped between endless crossfires. But we are not here to run away from that darkness, because it is precisely that horrifying past which makes what stands before you today one of the greatest urban transformations in modern history. Look at Medellin now. From the ashes of violence and terror, this city clawed its way back to life and rose high enough to be named the world's most innovative city, defeating global giants like New York and London. And this rebirth was not built on fantasy or miracle. It was forged from the raw resilience of people who refused to let the world define them by their scars. Instead of hiding its wounds, Medellin turned them into foundations for reinvention. Entire neighborhoods, once isolated by fear, are now connected by futuristic cable cars, gliding above the mountainsides like arteries pumping life back into the city. Public libraries, escalators, and cultural spaces replaced territories that were once ruled by bullets. Today, Medellin pulses with creativity, music, technology, and relentless ambition. The city that once symbolized death has transformed itself into the living embodiment of eternal spring. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson Colombia can teach the world. Even in the darkest corners of human history, people will always find a way to rise again. Step deeper into the heart of Medellin, where an entire neighborhood clings desperately to the side of a near vertical mountain. Welcome to Comuna 13. Imagine a district so isolated that its steep labyrinth of narrow alleyways transformed it into the perfect natural fortress for drug cartels. In the past, innocent families here lived trapped inside a prison without bars, caught between daily crossfires and bursts of gunfire echoing through the hillsides. So, how do you save a community the world has already abandoned? Medellin's answer was not more prisons, not more soldiers. Instead, the city unleashed one of the craziest architectural solutions ever attempted. They built a gigantic outdoor escalator system, stretching up the mountainside, the equivalent height of a 28-story building. Suddenly, what had once been an exhausting and dangerous multi-hour climb through gang-controlled territory was reduced to a smooth 6-minute ride. But these escalators did far more than transport people. They injected life back into an entire community for the first time. Comuna 13 was truly connected to the rest of the city. And with that connection came the collapse of isolation, poverty, and violence. Walls once shredded by bullets are now covered in explosive graffiti murals bursting with color, telling stories of pain, resistance, and survival. The crack of gunfire has been replaced by pounding hip-hop beats, breakdancers spinning freely in the streets, and young artists reclaiming spaces once ruled by fear. The transformation became so extraordinary that it triggered a global migration phenomenon. Today, if you walk through Medellin's co-working spaces and cafes, you will find thousands of Americans and digital nomads typing away on laptops. A city once considered too dangerous for foreigners to even enter has transformed itself into one of the most attractive tech hubs in South America, offering world-class quality of life at a fraction of Silicon Valley's cost. Comuna 13 stands today as living proof that art, architecture, and human resilience can drag an entire community back from the edge of death. Leaving behind the explosive energy of Medellin, we now fly straight into a true physical endurance test. Welcome to Bogotá, a capital city floating among the clouds. You thought Denver was America's proud, high-altitude metropolis. Think again. Bogotá sits more than 8,600 feet above sea level, nearly 3,000 feet higher than Denver itself. The air here is so thin that the moment you step out of the airport or carry your luggage up a short staircase, your lungs immediately begin screaming for oxygen. Altitude sickness is not some exaggerated warning. It is Bogotá's brutal physical handshake with every newcomer. But once your heartbeat finally adapts to the lack of oxygen, the city rewards you with a visual spectacle unlike anything else on Earth. Step into La Candelaria, the historical soul of the capital. This place feels like a gigantic open-air museum, violently ripped apart by youthful rebellion. Massive Spanish colonial mansions with centuries-old red-tiled roofs now stand side by side with some of the most explosive street art in South America. Entire walls erupt with enormous graffiti murals telling stories of politics, resistance, revolution, and Colombian pride. The contrast is intoxicating. Majestic history and rebellious modern energy collide together in perfect chaos. Bogotá steals your breath away, not only because of its altitude, but because every street, every wall, and every cracked stone pulses with raw artistic energy. Forget the grandeur of Roman ruins or the perfectly polished pyramids of Mexico. Hidden deep inside the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta mountains lies an entire kingdom completely swallowed by the jungle. You have certainly heard of Machu Picchu, South America's legendary lost city. But the truth is, the city we are about to enter was built 650 years before Machu Picchu even existed. Welcome to Ciudad Perdida, the Lost City. And this is absolutely not some relaxing weekend hike through an American national park. To touch these ancient stones, you must pay with sweat exhaustion and raw survival instinct. The multi-day trek drains every ounce of strength from your body as you force your way through suffocating tropical jungle, thick with mosquitoes across steep mud-covered trails, and through raging rivers crashing down the mountainside. This is the closest thing to a real-life Indiana Jones expedition left on modern Earth. And after climbing more than 1,200 ancient stone steps buried into the mountainside, the lost civilization finally reveals itself. Hundreds of circular stone terraces emerge from the fog, floating silently above a sea of clouds. But the most haunting thing here is not the greatness of the architecture. It is the terrifying fragility of humanity itself. The ancient Tairona civilization once flourished here in extraordinary power and sophistication. Yet the moment its people disappeared, the jungle immediately reclaimed everything. Gigantic roots wrapped themselves around the stone structures like serpents crushing walls, swallowing pathways, and erasing entire chapters of civilization beneath endless layers of green. Ciudad Perdida stands today as a chilling warning to humanity. No matter how mighty our empires become, nature always waits patiently to take the world back. Leaving behind the brutal wilderness of the rainforest, we move south toward the razor-sharp cliffs of the Andes Mountains, near the border of Ecuador. Hidden deep inside the Guaitara River Canyon lies a structure that completely defies gravity and human logic. Imagine walking through a deadly canyon carved between towering cliffs, and suddenly a gigantic Gothic cathedral appears suspended in midair. Welcome to Las Lajas Sanctuary. It is so surreal and impossibly majestic that it feels as if someone ripped an ancient European cathedral out of history and wedged it directly between two vertical canyon walls above a raging river. How could people in the early 20th century, armed with primitive tools and almost impossible access routes, transport thousands of tons of stone deep into a lethal canyon to construct something this unreal? The answer was not engineering. It was faith. Legend says that a mother and her deaf-mute daughter once sought shelter inside this canyon during a violent storm. There, upon the rock wall itself, a miraculous apparition appeared, and the little girl was suddenly healed. To honor that miracle, the people chose to build the church directly into the cliff, where the vision had manifested, transforming the natural stone itself into the cathedral's sacred altar. Las Lajas Sanctuary is not merely an architectural wonder. It is a colossal monument proving that when human beings are driven by absolute belief, they can bend even the harshest physical laws imposed by nature itself. If you think building a cathedral suspended above a canyon was the craziest thing Colombia could possibly create, then look at this. Rising from the middle of a vast artificial lake stands a gigantic monolithic rock, towering more than 200 meters high, the equivalent of a 65-story skyscraper. El Peñón de Guatapé does not look like something that belongs on Earth. It resembles a colossal meteorite that crashed straight down from outer space and embedded itself violently into the planet's surface. But instead of leaving the rock untouched in mystery, humanity decided to conquer it in the strangest way imaginable. From a distance, you can see a giant zigzag scar running up the side of the stone. That scar is actually a staircase. 740 steps stitched directly into a vertical crack in the rock itself. It looks as though someone used a gigantic thread to sew the mountain back together after it split open. Climbing to the summit is a brutal endurance test capable of destroying weak legs and exhausted lungs. But the reward waiting at the top instantly erases every drop of suffering. From this dizzying height, the world below explodes into an endless labyrinth of turquoise water weaving between hundreds of tiny green islands. And resting beneath the shadow of the monolith lies Guatapé, one of the most colorful towns on Earth, where every single building bursts with vibrant painted patterns, like brushstrokes inside a surreal living masterpiece. Do you know where the purest and most dazzling emeralds displayed inside the luxury storefronts of Fifth Avenue actually come from, not from modern mines in Europe or North America? They come from the brutal mountains of Colombia. This country almost completely dominates the global market for the highest quality emeralds on Earth. But the truly insane part is not hidden deep underground inside the mines. It is the way these gemstones are traded. Welcome to Bogotá's underground emerald market, hidden in plain sight, right in the middle of the capital city. Forget the heavily armed bodyguards, airport-style security scanners, or armored briefcases you see in Hollywood movies. Here on the noisy sidewalks of South America, multi-million-dollar deals happen openly in broad daylight. You will see ordinary-looking men casually gathering on street corners, whispering negotiations while calmly passing priceless emeralds hand to hand. And this is where the real cultural shock begins. These gemstones worth entire fortunes are not carefully protected inside velvet-lined luxury boxes. They are carelessly wrapped in crumpled scraps of white paper and shoved into jean pockets or old jackets, exactly the way you might crumple up loose cash to buy a cup of street coffee. At first glance, the whole scene feels absurdly reckless. But beneath that chaos lies a brutal survival economy built on one invisible law: absolute trust. Because in a country where violence and danger were once part of everyday life, cheating someone in this world does not simply cost you money. It can cost you your life. The violent contrast between Earth's most luxurious gemstones and the raw danger of Bogotá's streets has transformed this hidden marketplace into one of the strangest and most nerve-wracking financial ecosystems on the planet. Every morning in New York City or Los Angeles, millions of Americans happily pull out their wallets and pay $6 for a weak cup of coffee that disappears down their throats in seconds. You think you are drinking something luxurious and sophisticated, but the truth is, you are being fooled. To discover what coffee is actually supposed to taste like, We must leave behind the polished glass cafes and plunge directly into the steep mountainsides of coffee cultural landscape of Colombia. Welcome to Salento. Hidden beneath the misty clouds of the Andes, this is the beating heart of Colombia's coffee triangle, the birthplace of some of the purest and finest Arabica beans on earth. But do not expect to find gigantic industrial harvesting machines roaring across endless flat fields like the American Midwest. The terrain here is far too steep and unforgiving for machines to survive. Every single step of the process must be done entirely by hand. Farmers in Salento carry woven baskets on their backs while climbing through slippery mountain slopes buried in fog, scaling dizzying elevations just to pick coffee cherries one by one. And they never strip entire branches. Instead, using decades of experience and a brutally trained eye, they carefully select only the perfectly ripe, deep red cherries. This is not simple agricultural labor. It is survival craftsmanship demanding extreme patience and relentless precision. After harvest, the beans are washed, dried naturally beneath the mountain sun, and roasted by hand to preserve the raw flavor of the highlands themselves. So the next time you hold a $6 cup of coffee in your hands, remember this: its true flavor was paid for with the sweat, exhaustion, and obsessive dedication of silent workers hanging from mountainsides in Salento. But world-class coffee and emeralds are not the only things attracting global attention to Colombia. Let's talk about something every American cares deeply about: money. If you are struggling to pay thousands of dollars every month for a cramped apartment in New York City, or staring in horror at outrageous medical bills in Los Angeles, then Colombia is about to hit you with a serious shock. That is why a massive wave of Americans, digital nomads, and retirees are packing their bags and moving here. Now do the math. In rapidly rising cities like Medellin or Bogota, you can genuinely live a luxury lifestyle. You can stay in a penthouse apartment overlooking mist-covered valleys, eat at upscale restaurants every night, and access exceptional private health care. And all of it can cost only a fraction of what you would pay back home. The real shock comes with the healthcare system. Not only is it dramatically cheaper, but Colombia's healthcare has often been internationally recognized for its quality and accessibility, outperforming expectations many Americans have about Latin America entirely. Yes, you heard that correctly. High-quality healthcare at prices that feel almost unreal compared to the United States. Suddenly, moving to a country once portrayed as dangerous no longer sounds reckless. It sounds financially intelligent. And that is exactly why Colombia is redefining the modern idea of the good life, transforming what many people once imagined as the American dream into a new reality unfolding in the heart of South America. Leaving behind the mist-covered mountains and the nerve-wracking underground deals, we now surge straight toward the sun-drenched Caribbean coast. Forget Hollywood's Pirates of the Caribbean fantasies, because this was the real battlefield, and it was soaked in blood. Welcome to Cartagena. For centuries, this city served as the gigantic vault of the Spanish Empire, where billions of dollars worth of gold, silver, and emeralds were stored before being loaded onto massive fleets, sailing back to Europe. To protect this unimaginable wealth from the most infamous pirates in history, enormous defensive fortresses were constructed with coral stone walls dozens of feet thick. Today, those cannon-scarred walls still stand proudly surrounding one of the most vibrant colonial cities on Earth, now recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Center, World Heritage Site. But Cartagena's true magic lies in its violent contrasts. Just beyond the remnants of brutal wars and pirate invasions, an explosive tropical rhythm bursts to life. Jump aboard a speedboat and race a few miles offshore, and suddenly you are thrown directly into the heart of the Rosario Islands. This chain of untouched coral islands feels like a place where time itself has been erased. No cannons, no gunpowder, no empires. Instead, the Rosario Islands welcome you with crystal-clear turquoise water, endless beach parties, pounding music, white sand glowing beneath the Caribbean sun, and glasses of powerful rum flowing without end. Cartagena is the perfect collision between a savage history built on conquest and a modern culture obsessed with living life to its absolute fullest. But if you think Cartagena represents the peak of Caribbean culture, then you are completely mistaken. Travel farther along the coast to Barranquilla, where the very concept of a party is pushed beyond every imaginable limit. Welcome to the Barranquilla Carnival. The second largest carnival on Earth, surpassed only by Rio de Janeiro. But unlike the glamorous spectacle of Rio Barranquilla, feels more primal, more chaotic, and far more raw. For 4 straight days before Ash Wednesday, the entire city shuts down and surrenders itself to an explosion of color rhythm and uncontrollable energy. Hundreds of thousands of people flood the streets wearing the most outrageous costumes imaginable. Gigantic animal masks, blazing red silk outfits, and mythological creatures ripped directly from local legends. Everywhere you turn, the pounding drums of cumbia erupt through the streets, a hypnotic fusion of African rhythms, indigenous melodies, and Spanish influence. The beat is so powerful it forces your own heartbeat to synchronize with the crowd itself. You will see millions of people, rich and poor, young and old, dancing together beneath the suffocating Caribbean heat until their bodies collapse from exhaustion. And that leads to a deeper question: why are Colombians so often ranked among the happiest people on Earth? The answer is standing right here in the center of this madness. They are not happy because life has been easy. And they are certainly not free of scars. They are happy because they choose joy as an act of survival. In Colombian culture, dancing is not simply entertainment. It is resistance. Music becomes therapy. Movement becomes healing. And the burning rhythm of cumbia becomes a weapon against pain, fear, and history itself. In Barranquilla, Carnival is not just a celebration. It is a defiant declaration to the world: no matter what happens to us, we will keep dancing. Forget the cheese-loaded hamburgers of American fast food chains. If you truly want to challenge the limits of your taste buds, Colombia is ready to deliver the perfect culinary shock. Welcome to Baricara, an ancient colonial town where locals casually snack on something that might send chills down your spine. Hormigas culonas, giant roasted ants. And before you recoil in horror, understand this. For the people of Santander, these massive ants are not disgusting insects. They are the Andes Mountains version of luxury caviar. These giant queen ants emerge from underground for only a few days each year during the beginning of the rainy season to mate. That brief window transforms harvesting them into a frantic biological hunt. Locals catch the swollen queens by hand, season them with salt, and roast them over burning clay pans until perfectly crisp. And what do they taste like, shockingly? They are delicious. The moment you bite into one, you experience a rich, crunchy texture packed with deep, earthy flavor mixed with salty notes strangely similar to roasted peanuts and crispy bacon. Loaded with protein and traditionally believed to boost energy and vitality, this bizarre dish perfectly captures the Colombian survival mindset. Nothing in nature is wasted. Everything can become nourishment. Even the strangest biological creatures can be transformed into something unforgettable. Colombia is not merely a destination. It is humanity's greatest living proof of rebirth. This land does not try to erase the brutal scars of its past. Instead, it uses those very wounds as the richest soil from which to grow a brighter future. From its unforgiving rainforests to its breathtaking mountain peaks, and deep inside the heartbeat of its people, everything here carries the same genetic code: resilience. If you still judge Colombia through outdated movies and old stereotypes, then you are missing the greatest comeback story of the century. This is not a place for people who hide inside their comfort zones. It is a reward reserved for those willing to push beyond every limit. Come and see it for yourself. Because the only real danger of setting foot in Colombia is that you may never want to leave. Explore the world. Experience the extraordinary. And I will see you in the next adventure.